Welcome back, mathematicians. Today we're dealing with division in chapter 6. On your tablets and on page 81, in the book it's on page 82. We have to remember the laws of exponents, and remember when we divide powers with the same base, we write down the base and minus the exponents. So that will be m minus n. These are the things you have to learn. When dividing powers with the same base, write down the base and subtract the exponents. We're going to make use of the distributive law again. We did it in multiplication and now we're going to do it in division as well. And just to show you that I can do this in two ways. So I could say 6 plus 10 is 16 divided by 2 will give me 8. Or I can distribute, so what I do, I put that term over 2 and I put that term over 2. So I could also say that is 6 over 2 plus 10 over 2. Remember, the sign follows the term, the sign comes before the term that follows it. Right, 6 over 2 is the same as 3, plus 10 over 2 is the same as 5. And 3 plus 5 is 8. So we are going to make use of this way of dealing with fractions when we do division in algebra. Let's look at the first example. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to write 4a over 2. 4a over 2, and I'm going to write plus 6b over 2. And again, we deal with the signs, then the numbers, then the letters or the variables. Letters and variables, same thing. Right, so over here we can see that 2 goes into 2 once, 2 into 4 goes twice. So over here, that term simplifies to 2a over 1. This term, 2 goes into 2 once, 2 into 6 goes 3 times. So I have plus or positive 3b over 1. 2a over 1 is 2a plus 3b. Let's look at the next one. But before we do that, there's certain things you have to remember or you have to learn. The denominator of fraction is never ever 0 because that would make the fraction undefined. Okay, what I suggest here is that you write the division calculation in fraction form, then distribute the denominator to each numerator. Use a three-step approach that was used in multiplication: signs, numbers, variables. And remember, the variables are the letters. Collect the like terms if possible. That you need to learn. Right, let's look at the worked example. So the first thing you need to do is to write this in fraction form. So we're going to say negative 24a squared over 6a. And again, remember, we're going to deal with the signs first, then the numbers, then the variables or the letters. Right, so a negative divided by a positive will give a negative result. Then we deal with the number part. 6 goes into 6 once, 6 into 24 goes 4. Remember, when I divide powers with the same base, I write down my base and I subtract the exponents. Remember, there's an invisible 1 there. So I'm going to cancel that and I'm going to say 2 minus 1. So over here, I have an a. 2 minus 1 is 1. So my result is negative 4a over 1 equals negative 4a. Again, sign, so we did a negative divided by a positive, then we did the number part, and then we did the variable part. So what we did was we said a squared divided by a is the same as a to the power of 2 minus 1, which will give you a to the power of 1, which is the same as a. Let's look at this one. So the first rule is to distribute the denominator to each term in the numerator. So I'm going to say 15 x to the 4 y cubed over 5x, it's very ugly, y cubed over 5x squared y squared. I'm going to keep the negative with the 5, so I'm going to say negative 5x squared y squared over 5x squared y squared. Now I simplify each of those terms. I've taken my one term and split it into two terms. Right, so the first thing I do are the signs, positive divided by positive, so that's going to be positive. Numbers, 5 goes into 5 once, 5 into 15 goes 3 times. I've got more x's at the top, so I'm going to cancel that, and I'm going to say 4 minus 2, so that'll be x squared. I've got more y's in the numerator, so I cancel that, and I'm going to say that will be y to the 3 minus 2 is 1. And now this term simplifies to 3x squared y to the 1, or just y, over 1. Next term, a negative divided by a positive is negative. Then I do the number part. 5 into 5 goes once, 5 into 5 goes once. X squareds cancel, y squareds cancel, and I'm left with 1, because 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 1 over 1, and that will equal 3x squared y minus 1. Take note that if my numerator and denominator are the same, I'm going to have 1 as a result. If I've got two terms, when I've split the one term into two separate division sums, my answer must have two terms. Right, let's look at the test your understanding. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to write it as a fraction. So I've got negative 15 a cubed b squared divided by 3a cubed b. Right, the first thing I do are the signs. So a negative divided by a positive is negative. Then I'm going to deal with the numbers. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 into 15 goes 5 times. I've got more a's. Well, I've got the same amount of a's, so when they're identical, they will just cancel each other out. And now I look at the b's. I've got more b's in the numerator, so that cancels. And remember, this is b to the 1, so I'm going to have b, 2 minus 1 is 1. So the answer here is 5 multiplied by 1 multiplied by b to the 1 will give me 5b over 1. You can go straight to the final step. If you see all of these are 1s, you know that you have no denominator, so that will be 5b. Last one. we're going to take the numerator and put each term over the denominator. So that is our first step. Okay, 4x squared y over negative 2xy plus 8xy squared. You see, I keep the sign with the 8. Negative 2xy, negative 2xy over negative 2xy. Right, now I'm going to cancel. First thing I do is the sign. A positive divided by a negative is negative. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 into 4 goes twice. I have more x's in my numerator, so x cancels. And I say x, 2 minus 1 is 1. The y's are identical, so we know that they just cancel out. And from that term, I have 2 multiplied by x multiplied by 1 is 2x. And my denominator is 1. A positive divided by a negative is negative. Signs, now I deal with the numbers. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 into 8 goes 4 times. X's cancel each other out. I have more y's in my numerator, so y goes into y once. At the top, or in my numerator, I'll have 2 minus 1 is 1. 4 multiplied by 1 multiplied by y will give you 4y over 1. A negative divided by a negative is positive. Do you see that I've now taken the signs that I've linked to each term, and they're now the ones that join the term, so I've put them back in the middle. Right, 2's just cancel because they're identical. X's just cancel because they're identical. Y's just cancel, they are identical. You cannot have naught. Okay, so that term cancels, and you have 1 over 1, which is the same as 1. So let's write this properly. Negative 2x minus 4y plus 1. Remember I said if we've split it into 3 terms, to start with, we must have 3 terms in our answer. So that is a trinomial. That's all for division. Please will you go and do exercise 6.5. Thank you.